Hello, and thanks for tuning in. For the Looking Back series, I'm Marianne Pleva. Shows in this series feature community members who are doing extraordinary things. The railroad has been a fixture in Essex for over 150 years. Today's guest, Haddam Resident Paul Lewis, is well known to those who love the train. Unlike most people, Paul has been fortunate enough to follow his passion for trains and has been with the Valley Railroad for over 50 years. Welcome, Paul.
Well, good morning. Thank you for the welcome. It's nice to be here.
It's so glad to see you here. I'm so glad to see you here. So we have a lot of questions to cover, so we're going to get right to it here. I wonder if you would talk a bit about your family, where you grew up, and how they arrived in Connecticut, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, my mother and father were Connecticut residents. My mom lived in New Haven, and my father lived in East Haven. And we grew up in the Montauk section of North Haven, which was a contributing factor in why I'm here, probably.
Mm-hmm. I take it that there were some train tracks running through there.
Yes, there was a line from New Haven, the Montauk section, Cedar Hill Railroad Yard, all the way to Willimantic. Back in the day, it was the shortest railroad journey from New York to Boston. Mm-hmm. It's called the Airline.
Okay. And you told me that when you were very young, you had an interesting way of getting to see the train from your home, right?
Well, yes. The Airline, the branch line, was was practically in my backyard. There was a farmer's field between it and the house. There was only one window. My parents were renting this house. There was only one window on that side of the residence, and that was the kitchen window. And I remember hearing a whistle, and I'd run into the kitchen, followed by my mother. I was probably 2 years old. Mm-hmm. Couldn't climb anything that high yet. And she would lift me off the floor, put me in the sink, and I'd look out the window and see these huge clouds of white, which I understand now is condensate, not smoke. And every time I heard the whistle, Mom would follow me into the kitchen and put me into the sink.
What a great mom.
Yeah.
And then you had an opportunity to get a little more interested when you were about 7 years old at Christmas.
Yes, my cousin, and I had quite a few cousins, but they were spread out all over New England, and we, at Christmas time we visited one of my cousins, and they had this train, and I was just enthralled with it. And a year later, I believe, my father never admitted it, but I believe he purchased it from his brother. Mm-hmm. And we had a Marx. Marx was the Ford of toy trains. But I still have it. And my father built the track, built the switches for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he had an interest in trains too, your dad.
Well, I think his interest was anything that interested me and kept me away from becoming a carpenter was good.
Oh, he was a carpenter. Oh, there's a little bigger size train right there.
Yes.
You recognize that one, right?
I do recognize that.
We'll call it a toy train for this discussion. Well, you're still a teacher, but you were at one time a classroom teacher. Could you tell me a little about that?
Yes, I went to Central Connecticut State University. I received my bachelor's in education, and I taught electronics in Fairfield. And I received a master's and 6th year in audiovisual administration. But I liked the classroom. I stayed in the classroom, did not go into any type of administration. I taught in Fairfield for 18 years, and then changes in the family necessitated that I do something else in a different part of the world. So I went to Hartford. Hartford wanted someone with a lot of experience, and I changed my whole itinerary. I taught physics.
Wow.
And really enjoyed it. I developed a class for children who did not have a in-depth education in math and science, and the state liked it. They gave me a lot of money to build a lab, and
Wow, you were pretty influential.
well, I enjoyed teaching. I would go back tomorrow if I could.
And what was the name of the school?
Andrew Ward High School in Fairfield, and Weaver High School, and Hartford Public, the oldest public high school in the U.S.
Oh, Weaver, great, great. Well, that's pretty exciting start off of your career. And then you got interested in airplanes before trains, I guess.
Well, I was always interested in aviation. My father was issued the first glider license in the state of Connecticut. He had to get his private pilot license because people were complaining that he and his brothers were flying off a cliff in East Haven in a glider. And so the various town officials decided that they really shouldn't do that without proper training. So my father went down to Curtis Ryan Field in New York and got his private pilot and got his glider license. And I wanted to fly, but after I graduated from high school, I did have to register for the draft, and I scored fairly nice on the test. And everybody wanted me, but I wanted the Air Force. And the Air Force had their quota for 11 months. And I really couldn't wait for that, so I went to work with the State Highway Department as a surveyor for a while, and got interested in college. I'd already taken my entrance exam. They said I could matriculate anytime in the next 10 years. My credentials would stay on file. So less than a year later, I started in September to get a baccalaureate degree from Central Connecticut.
Great, you had a lot of good education. But back to model trains, because of your interest in model trains, I know you used to get together with a buddy and you wound up going to some, well, you found out about a job, I guess, so.
Well, when I was in Fairfield, my buddy and I would go to a hobby shop in Bethel every 2 weeks. And one of the engines that is now in Essex, number 97, steam engine, was in railfan service. And we decided to go and follow it, take pictures. And that was it. I was comfortable with that. And while we were in a hobby shop sometime later, a fellow came in and said, "Did you guys see 97 on the trip to Derby?" And I said, "Oh yes, I took lots of pictures of it at Terryville Tuttle." And he said, "How would you like to be a part of it?" And I said, "I don't think so. There must have been 50 people milling around, climbing all over it while it was taking water." And he said, "No, there's only like 6 people." 6 people? I said, "Tell me more." So they said, "Well, we have a meeting in Thomaston on Tuesday. Give me the address, I'll be there." And I was, and I met the first superintendent of the Valley Railroad, and I took part in a couple of fan trips from Danbury to Canton, Connecticut. Did my first firing, hand shoveling, and I loved every moment, every mile I loved. And when the state took over the old Penn Central line from Saybrook to Hartford, we were the first in line to get a permit for a lease on that piece of track, and we started moving equipment from Danbury to Saybrook, cutting trees.
So you really had to clean up.
And this was like 1968,
Oh,
69.
okay. And you really had to clean up the
Eons
property
ago.
in Essex.
We had to do
Yeah.
a lot of cleanup because trains had not run there since the middle 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So things grow pretty quick between rails and ties.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So there's a special building on the property. It's called the Oliver Jensen Building. It was a bottling place when it was Witch Hazel?
When we first arrived in Essex, Dickinson Witch Hazel was in operation. It was one of 3 witch hazel plants in the state.
Uh-huh.
And the one in Trumbull burned while I lived there teaching in Fairfield, and that left only the Dickinson plant in Essex, the Centerbrook section of Essex, and the one in East Hampton. The East Hampton one is the only one left. And that was a bottling plant. The Oliver Jensen Gallery is part of that building. It's pretty much the office for the railroad.
Okay.
And wedding receptions.
Yeah. And Oliver, what was his?
Oliver Jensen was a very, very interesting Connecticut resident. He wrote several books, one on the Connecticut River. He was there the very first day, and he was very supportive of the railroad, and we honor him by naming the gallery after him. He was very, very influential in getting us started and keeping us going in the early years.
I've been on a tour of the East Hampton facility to see where they make their witch hazel, and they are still doing the same thing they always did, cutting the witch hazel trees, but they're really going great guns here. It was a great tour. So we're going to take a short little break, do a public service announcement, and I hope it'll be about public access television. But don't go away, because we'll be back right after this break.
Smart TVs and streaming services have taken over the television industry. VSC TV is proud to announce our presence on Apple TV and Roku to make watching your favorite shows even easier. You can access this service by downloading the Cablecast ScreenWeave app. Then choose Valley Shore Community TV from the list of channels. Select VSC TV Live to watch our channel in full HD. Or pick a show from our on-demand video library. VSC TV is your local Connecticut Mid-Shore Valley digital connection.
Hi, we're back. I'm glad you came back. I'm here with Paul Lewis, a longtime employee, a jack of all trades at the Valley Railroad. And by the way, Paul, what kind of time do they use on the railroad?
Well, we use standard time, whatever the standard time is, whether it be daylight savings or Eastern Standard. That's what we use. Unlike the aviation industry that uses one time standard, and that's Universal Coordinated Time, UTC. The railroads actually developed time zones because it was so difficult to know when you were going to arrive at a station miles and miles away. And so the railroad actually instituted the various time zones so that everyone on the East Coast could know when the train would arrive in Chicago or Minneapolis, and a railroad, since it ran on time, and that was the only way it could run, watches had to be checked every month by a horologist. And a railroad watch basically should have 21 joules minimum, and you cannot set the time by moving the crown.
Yeah.
That simply winds the watch. In order to set this watch, you have to actually remove the bezel. There's a little lever inside which you pull out, and now the crown is activated to set the time. So as you take it in and out of your pocket, you can't make a mistake and
I see.
pull the stem out and change the time.
I never knew it was so important.
Plus, this is a very interesting watch. It is a Swiss watch. I have lots of American watches, Hamilton, Ball. But this watch is a true conductor's watch. A conductor, to see the time, takes his pocket watch out and he looks at it like this. So the 12 o'clock is where the 9 o'clock is normally on a watch.
Wow.
The 3 o'clock is at the crown. Now an engineer takes it out of his bib overalls and looks like this. So it's the 12 o'clock is at the crown.
Ingenious.
So anyway.
So back to the property, you said it took a lot of cleanup, and there's a couple of things still remaining, and they've done over the building. It's really all been redone with commercial businesses in there. But there's a water tower, and there's that, it says a yellow label building. So the water tower is just, oh, I know. What's it used for now?
The water tower? It's a cell phone tower.
Okay. And the yellow label building, I guess that's empty, but that was
Well, that is where they would take the witch hazel, which many farmers would gather on their property. And as a matter of fact, all along the line where we go, you can see witch hazel growing. It blooms in like January, has a yellowish bloom. But they would cut witch hazel on their property, bring it to the various stations, wherever the closest freight station was, and load it into gondolas, which of course, as the train moved, the pieces of branches and seeds and so forth from the witch hazel would fly out, and that's why you have so much witch hazel along the right-of-way. But they would take the witch hazel, grind it up, put it in a vat, distill it to get the witch hazel extract out of it. And they would use some interesting ingredients besides witch hazel to make it.
And they still do it the same.
They still do it.
I know it. And I think they have the same two people that go and cut it.
Yes, as a matter of fact,
or maybe the grandsons.
Right now it's being cut on the Connecticut-Rhode Island border.
Okay. So we took some photos when I met with you in the Jorgensen facility, and they're black and white photos. They're pretty historic. So if we could just go through those. And I know it's a little hard to see right now, but can you recognize that one?
It looks like Deep River.
Okay, maybe we should flip to the next. Oh, these guys are
okay, this is
special.
this is a photo. That is the car that Doris Day rode in when she did the movie It Happened to Jane.
Oh, great.
It's a high rail car. It has wheels on it that allows it to go on the track. And the fellow on the left, right next to the vehicle, he is Bill Zeiser. He was our first superintendent. It was his vision that actually made this happen, along with Mr. Jensen. Yep.
Okay, we'll go to the next one. Oh,
well, we skipped. There we go. Okay, this is early on when we had a small steam engine, number 103, which is no longer here. It's in Naugatuck, on the Naugatuck Railroad. We had 3 cars and a gondola, and this is how we made our boat connection. The people got out of the train on the west side of the train, walked over the crossing, which is much improved now, and walked down to the boat.
Okay.
Things have really changed, but that's an early picture. That's 1971.
Okay, and the next photo?
And that's the Dickinson building. with trees, and the coal towers way down at the end.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
That's very early also.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the bottling building.
Okay, and the next?
This is what we call the Meadow. It's about a quarter of a mile outside of the station in Essex. And that's number 97 there, it looks like. And it's got flags, so it's we're commemorating something, I'm not sure which, but we have a diesel behind because I guess we're going to do some switching where we don't have a runaround. But that's the Meadow. All of that was country once, and and Route 9 took all the topsoil off. But that's the Meadow. It's a little bit different now. It's grown up.
And do we have one more? Not that.
Okay, that house is still there. That's Dr. Tate's house, and that's Deep River.
Deep River.
And that's where they built clipper ships.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do we have? Okay.
Oh, yes.
This looks like another celebration.
This is just before we opened the spring of the year we opened. Those are the coaling towers behind us. So we all decided to do a goofy photo on our first locomotive, which is number 103. And she was from Middletown, New York.
Okay, great. And do we have one of Paul? Oh.
There I am.
There you are. Okay. So the Valley Railroad thanks all the people that live where it goes through once a year, a little neighborhood appreciation. How does that work?
Yes, we do have a neighborhood appreciation. We have lots of friends along the line, and we try to keep them happy. We have very strict rules on smoke and on noise, except in an emergency. And we say thank you every year with a free steam train and riverboat ride.
And the riverboat. Okay, we'll talk about the riverboat, but that's the steam train. So the land that the tracks are on is called a heritage park?
Yes, we are a Connecticut state park.
And you're how many miles long?
We have 24 miles. We operate over 14.
And you go to, what's the?
We go just below, the locals call it the Shad Shack. And just about there, just below Haddam State Park.
Okay, and the non-locals might say Tylerville?
Well,
or the Tylerville
we're a little bit more north, yes.
Okay.
Tylerville, Goodspeed Opera House, the Swing Bridge.
So what other things do you do? I know there's all kinds of things going on at the train, and you're just starting up this week too, right?
Yes, we start today with our 5-day-a-week. We haven't returned to our 7-day-a-week schedule as we had before the pandemic, but we're back to a 5-day, Thursday through Monday. And we have our steam train and riverboat, which I might add, the steam train and riverboat, the nearest steam train boat connection is Skagway, Alaska. So you have to travel a long way. So come to Essex and get the connection at Deep River. It's much easier, much closer.
Okay, then you have something hand on the throttle.
We have hand on the throttle, which is a program where people who want to do that, they get a mailing, they get some study materials, they have to pass a basic safety test, and they get a classroom with perhaps myself that will tell them about the thing that they're going to operate, the steam locomotive, and how to be safe. And they have an hour or two, depending upon what they want, and they actually run the locomotive. Blow the whistle, ring the bell, make it go forward, make it go back.
So how many people are in each class, or is it a private class, one at a time?
Maximum would be 4 people, 4 people in the morning, 4 people in the afternoon.
Okay, and at some point you bought how long have you had the boat in Deep River?
Forever.
So there's such a beautiful
The steam
picture of
train
that
river
boat.
boat has always been our
track.
hallmark.
Yeah. And some great shots of all
And
your track.
yes, that's Haddam Cove, not too far from where I am.
That's Deep River.
That's Tate.
That's
That's where
beautiful.
the Tate House is. Yes,
Yeah.
that's Deep River.
Deep River.
Deep River. Yeah.
And
Beautiful sky. Look at that.
yeah, look
That's
at
our
that.
boat. That's the Becky
Yeah,
Thatcher. I
yeah.
often ask people, where did we get the name Becky Thatcher? Every once in a while, somebody will say, "Oh, that was Tom Sawyer's girlfriend," and they get a gold star.
No kidding. Well, I didn't know that. So I'll get a gold star next time someone asks.
Okay.
So you also added something, and I think it's so interesting how it came to be, those bicycles, which I know you were out riding yesterday. So tell me about those.
Okay. Before I do, let me tell you more. Two more things we have with the train. We have a lunch train. You can get individual passage provided a group has booked that time. So if you're flexible and can come the same time the group or groups come, we have a great lunch train.
Okay.
You get diesel, you get steam, you get boat. You get everything we have to offer in one trip. We also have a great dinner train. I love the dinner train, wearing black and white. Having been a teacher and love teaching, these people for 2.5 hours are my classroom.
Okay. Okay. Well, I know they enjoy you because one
And
of our camera people.
the bicycles we ordered them just before the pandemic, and during the pandemic, we operated out of Tylerville. People love them. They're either 4-seaters or 2-seaters. They're very, very light. 2 people can pedal a 4-seater with no problem. Right now, we're running from Essex to Saybrook through the largest forest preserve between Boston and New York.
That's where the bikes are going?
That's where the bikes are going.
Oh my gosh. So you have to reserve online?
Oh, yes.
Not
yes.
on the telephone, online?
Online. Or, yes, the telephone.
Or the telephone, okay, okay. So you were in a different part though yesterday. You were in Blainville or something? Does someone else have the bikes? No?
No.
Okay.
The bikes are in operation. I don't think they're in operation today. They will be certainly Saturday and Sunday. You'll have to check the website.
Okay, will do.
That's the best way to find out what's going on.
Okay. So there have been some very well-known people involved with the railroad. And did Katharine Hepburn do a documentary?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Catherine. Yes, she was on a diesel when it was Penn Central, and oh yes.
So where did it show on, public
Yes, it was.
television?
It was on
PBS?
public television.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it had to be quite a while ago because she's been gone for quite a
Yes.
while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was actually before we arrived on the scene, so you know, we're talking like 66, 66.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was when it was the old railroad.
The old
Yeah, the old.
Penn Central, which
Right.
when it was abandoned, the state of Connecticut said, just go. You cannot take anything with you. Because when railroads would abandon, they'd pull up all their steel and use it or sell it. But our legislature had just made a law. We've had movies there too. Is that next question?
How'd you know that was my
Oh, I
next
don't
question? And I love the Jack Lemmon and Doris Day one.
Oh,
I've
yes.
seen that a few times.
That's black and white. Half the movie takes place in Chester, Connecticut, which was Cape May, Maine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had Ragtime.
Oh.
We've had.
Did you have some Indiana Jones movies?
We had a great Indiana Jones movie. It was a cloudy, overcast day, but with all the lights, it looked like the sun was brightly shining. They filmed all day for 3 minutes.
Oh, really? I guess wow. I guess that's how it works, huh? So there's, I don't know if that's the Doris Day one or which one that is.
Well,
That was in the book, Snatch, Mr. Miller's book. That's where I got that photo.
Okay.
So, and Hallmark. Did you do a Hallmark production?
Hallmark
production called Next Stop Christmas.
We have done that. I was not involved personally.
Mm-hmm.
We did the Amistad, part of the Amistad.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think of the there is another one we did there.
Yeah.
I think part of the Lincoln Douglas debates. It was a documentary.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. So I wish we had your picture. We don't have Paul's picture, and it's aha. So Paul,
where'd you get that?
There you are. How long have you been at the
Well, those were the days when I had sideburns. I also had an Abe Lincoln beard. I also had a mustache.
And you also had your hat.
I had a well. That's an engineman's cap. Mm-hmm. That's engine 97. One of my it's my favorite because I learned how to fire on it. And you can see the pipe. That's a long time ago because I haven't smoked in 40 years anyway.
I see. That's a good way to date it.
Yeah.
You're smoking your pipe. What are the biggest changes that you've seen in your, did you say how many years you've been there?
51.
51 years.
Well, our train's much longer. We have 3 steam engines and not one little bitty one. And we've added all kinds of programs. We have cruises, we have swallow cruises, and we have thematic cruises during the year. People. I remember when we had like maybe 5 or 6 paychecks going out. And it is a for-profit company, so we do get paid. Initially, many of us did not. We volunteered, and we said, when we had to get paid, we'll give the money back. And we said, well, we have to pay taxes on this, so the money's not going back. We have upwards of 400 during Christmas.
Really?
In Thomas, yeah.
Wow.
That's a big
change.
Lots of employees. True, only for a short time, but employees nonetheless.
Yeah.
Christmas is my favorite because we have the Polar Express.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, it's the North Pole Express. And we have an actor in each car. They're professionals, and their job is to entertain and keep the people involved, and they do a wonderful job. I love to walk through the cars. Each one is doing something different, with the exception of the first 15 minutes when they tell the story the night before Christmas. They're all within about 20 seconds of each other. But once they start doing their own thing, it's just great to watch the interaction.
And how about Thomas the Train? Does that bring the most people in? Because this town seems overrun with parking lots that day.
For a day's attendance, yes.
How much do you think you get? Have any idea?
Oh, a couple thousand.
Oh, I bet it's more than that.
I bet it's more than that too.
But anyway, that's a great event for a little tyke.
Yeah.
But a great event for everybody.
Yeah.
So before we go on, I just want to have a shout out to Peggy, your wife, who plays ukulele with me.
As you do, plays the ukulele.
And with Liz, who's our camera person today. So hi, Peg. Thanks for sending Paul my way. So anyway, I know you're involved in a million other activities. Were you in the parade, the Losers' Day parade?
I'm a drummer with the Westbrook Drum Corps.
All right, we have a picture of some drummers here, and I hope one of them is you, but I'm not sure.
We'll see.
I just happened to take that picture.
Where's that?
In front of the Pratt House. That was the burning of the ships parade.
Okay.
You were in Essex, right?
Yes, I was in Essex for the burning of the ships. They have a short parade. Well, it's a one-way parade now. It used to be both ways. it's a muster kind of a thing where
Yeah.
we, at the end of the parade, each group plays something for everybody, and then the host corps provides food.
Oh, that's nice.
My favorite part.
Yeah. And were you with Deep River? I mean, with Haddam in that picture when you marched?
I'm with Westbrook always,
Oh, with Westbrook. Okay.
and we go to Deep River. We have our own muster in Westbrook the fourth Saturday of
Oh, yeah, that's
August.
coming right up. That's quite
Yep.
a day.
Deep
Quite
River
a
is the
couple of
third
days.
Saturday of July. That,
And what other activities are you in? Just to name a few.
well, I love to bicycle. I have a couple of motorcycles. I'm a mason. I'm an elk.
Wow.
I model railroad.
Oh, great, great. So you must visit the Connecticut River Museum, see
Oh,
the
yes.
little setup, right?
Oh, yes.
At Christmas time.
Yes.
So
Upstairs. Yeah.
I'm going to give it to you. Is there anything we forgot to mention that you would like to say? You want to comment on your outfit today?
Well, I don't have my hat, but yes, this is a typical conductor's uniform. These buttons are from the era. These are New York, New Haven, and Hartford buttons. I don't like gold, so they're silver. And what else do I have? Oh, a name tag that has a date on it. I won't mention that. This is how we dress.
So you're all set with that watch in your pocket. You're ready to go.
I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
It's almost time.
Okay.
No, I've done lots of things. Getting back to airplanes, I did do some flying briefly. Yesterday, I was with my friend. We were riding bikes on an old railroad trail, a rail to trail, and railroads are fairly level, and so I'm at the point in my life where I like level.
Yeah, level and no cars.
Yeah, no cars. No cars.
That's
no.
the other good part
Lots
about
of nice
a rail,
people, though.
rail to trail. So that's it. No other thoughts.
I
You want
don't.
to leave your audience with?
I probably said too much already.
Okay. Well, I think we've timed this very well because we are just about out of time. And so I'll say this concludes our program. And remember, all shows in the Looking Back series can be seen every Monday night at 7 o'clock on Channel 19 Public Access. Or they can be viewed on demand by going into Valley Shore Community TV's website, www.sctv.com, and following the prompts to the Looking Back series. Thanks for our crew, Leslie Barlow, Liz Schaefer, Chris Morgan, and Emily Miner, and a special thanks to Paul Lewis.
Well, thank you.
And, thanks for watching.